Thank you, Igor. Yes, that was the intro to Nobody's Hero. Welcome, everyone. This is episode 194 of Rush Roundtable. We are continuing our song discussions through 1993's Counterparts album. Today, we're track number 4, Nobody's Hero. And with me today, I've got Igor to my right. Below me is my name counterpart, I guess, Paul. And to my diagonal side is Alex Kelly. So, this is the second single that was released off the album in the spring of '94. Starts out with a opening that we just heard as an acoustic opening. Opening thoughts before we get into the lyrics? Pretty straightforward, I guess. No.
Well, the one thing about that, as far as before getting into the lyrics, you stop and think how many Rush songs, especially coming out of the '80s, how many Rush songs involve some distinct strumming of an acoustic guitar, and that's something that always kind of struck me because of the fact that when I think '80s, I think a lot of arpeggiated, clean tone notes. Obviously, you got your chorus, you got your delay, you got your compression. But by the time we got into the '90s, that organic rock vibe does start to materialize across, well, the rock spectrum. So he's certainly, hey, let's do a strumming song. That wasn't very common for Rush at the time.
Is that a lighter string too?
Excuse me?
Real light, a light gauge string too, right?
Well, he was using a 12 string for this, so they did have the octaves up. And yes, I know if someone wants to say, "Hey, there was strumming and Roll the Bones," yes, he did have it, but this like kind of featured as the intro, you know. But yeah, he was because I originally had as my background part of the video where he had his 12 string ovation, but that was so dark. I thought that looks like a big hulking darkness of me, so it's sort of all right. I'll lose the video, but. But yeah, that extra chime on the top end from the 12 string.
We just finished up. Point. Never thought about it, but you're right about Roll the Bones. In Roll the Bones, it's used like a background, like layering, but here it's like straight in your face from the intro, and it's very organic, as you say it. Yeah,
that's the riff.
And we just right before that is cut to the chase that finishes right. Like it's not a fade out; it just cuts.
Right.
A big bang, and then all of a sudden it goes right into the strumming. I mean, it's a completely different direction. So, Okay, so let's get into the lyrics. The first verse: I knew he was different in his sexuality. I went to his parties as a straight minority. It never seemed a threat to my masculinity. He only introduced me to a wider reality. Do you want me to keep that second part too, then we can all bring it all into one big. Okay, so as the years went by, we drifted apart. When I heard that he was gone, I felt a shadow cross my heart, but he's nobody's hero. Who wants to start the conversation on this section of the song?
I think it's interesting the way you wound up just ending that sentence, because obviously, and I'm trying to think how do I hear Geddy singing it? You know, because obviously it's difficult for us not to read these without almost slipping into singing it because we've heard it so much. But the idea of that ending of "but he's nobody's hero" just is certainly bringing us right into what I'm sure Paul probably has a lot to say about, as far as the fact that here's this friend, Mr. Booth in London, who, you know, was his friend, his coworker, or had his crowd, his people, and then premature ending to his life. And what, you know, that gets a person thinking. When someone dies too soon, we can't help but say, okay, now I gotta process this.
And this was from his pre-Rush days. This is like early, I think it was 71. He spent 18 months in London trying to, you know, build his music career, and before he came back to Canada. But
yeah, his friend Ellis Booth.
That's it?
Yeah, well, pretty much without overdoing it. But yeah, he in interviews, Neil had said that he credited him with he never developed any form of homophobia because he went to his friends' parties, and it was just, he was accepted as is. Nothing was ever pushed on him, and he just said, okay, so this is a different person's lifestyle, and I'm accepted for me, they're accepted for them, and that's it. So as much as this song, and I don't want to get too much into this because so much has been made of this verse, this song is more than this verse. So that's the story behind it. And considering Counterparts, again, the theme of the album being counterparts, according to Oxford, equal, duplicate, yet an opposite. So the theme of duality here, as we're going to find out as we start getting more into the song. In this one, it's going to be the idea of heroism as opposed to role model. So he's talking about someone that he considered to be a role model because his friend had to deal with something and did so in a very dignified nature, as opposed to a different way that other people had to handle things. And I'm not going to get too far ahead of the song. So that's what I have to say about the verse.
And I think Neil even knew that even talking about this subject in 1993 was going to be somewhat controversial. I think it had been brought up in interviews, but he says, I don't care what people think. You read into it what you want, right?
Precisely.
And he's talking about a friend who in the early 70s was a homosexual, which, it wasn't very common. You didn't hear it about it. It was kind of really low key. It was and still in the early 90s, it still was. It was even now, even today, even in today's world.
So how much was made of this when it came out? Exactly.
Right. Exactly. Right. So then we go into the first chorus. So we transition, he says, but he's nobody's hero. And then he goes into saves a drowning child, cures a wasting disease. Hero lands the crippled airplane, solves great mysteries. Hero, I'm trying not to sing it, not the handsome actor who plays a hero's role. Hero, not the glamour girl who'd love to sell her soul. If anybody's buying, nobody's hero.
The first half of that is very present tense.
Mm-hmm.
He's not throwing a pronoun in front. He's not saying I save, he saves, she saves. He's just saves, cures, hero lands, solves, and that's something that I know I'm kind of looking ahead too to think of referencing back, just because we've especially with this album with Roll the Bones, we've been discussing Neil's even before he said, oh, I want to be a better drummer. As the best drummer, I want to be a better drummer. As the best lyric writer, I want to be a better lyric writer. And just what he's been doing on this album, that, as I say, we can look at this chorus, we can get into another verse, but you just sort of look at where these verbs fall, where these descriptors, and just wow. But also, I think it's interesting that this first half is very, as I say, very present tense, devoid of any kind of pronoun. But then the second half, he gets into the counterpart of hero, not the, nobody's, and at that point, just the title of the song, nobody's, it has, at some levels, it could have a negative connotation, but in some cases is negative. Is negative just the other side of positive? And in this case, it's negative's not negative. I think you all know what I'm saying, but feel free to comment. Just be cool. Anyway, I'll be quiet.
I agree completely. Hero, here's my example now. Saves a drowning child, cures a wasting disease. Hero, lands the crippled airplane, solves great mysteries. Hero, I even underlined it on my lyric sheet, not the handsome actor who plays the hero's role. Hero, not the glamour girl who'd love to sell her soul. If anybody's buying, nobody's here. Oh, Neil's still doing his wordplay. So that's exactly it. Role model versus hero. This is what I'm saying it is. This is what I'm saying it isn't.
Especially in the Western world, in the Western society, right?
The Western idea of is yeah.
Interestingly enough, musically, we don't hear Neil play at all until the chorus kicks in, which is very different than what they're used to doing. Because basically, Alex is strumming throughout the whole first verse, and then bam. So, all right. Anything else?
Real quick, speaking of slow builds, I have to throw my shout out. One of my favorite musical treasures in this song, Michael Kamen with the orchestra. The slow builds. It started with as the years went by, is you could start with the strings and the horns are very low and they start coming in. And then right when the first crescendo of, as the build comes up, the whole song, the dynamics on this song, I call it, in my opinion, it's an epic, because the dynamic range in this song starts with, as Igor pointed out, you've got simply the strumming. And then as the build comes, as the years went by, now we got the orchestra coming in slowly. You can hear the horns barely. You can hear the strings start coming in. But then hero saves the drowning child. Now you've got your full dynamics coming in. Then not the handsome actor. But then if anybody's buying Nobody's Hero, boom. And then you've got your first interlude, I guess we'd call it. So just, this song, to me, this is that era. For this era, this is an epic to me.
Are you telling me there is the same guy who did S&M with Metallica?
S&M with Metallica, Silent Lucidity.
I didn't know this. I just thought it's like random orchestra or something.
No, he was. I mean, you had to be, if you were a band, you had to work with Michael Kamen in the early '90s. Obviously, Metallica was the end of the '90s, but the '90s, Michael Kamen was the
Queen.
conductor.
Who Wants to Live Forever? Show Must Go On. The man was a legend. Is a legend, but rest in peace.
Did he participate in any Rush tracks other than Nobody's Hero?
I don't know. I don't think so, but don't quote me.
I will Google it really quick.
Yes.
There we go. So with that, we can move on to the second verse. I didn't know the girl, but I knew her family. All their lives were shattered in a nightmare of brutality. They tried to carry on, tried to bear the agony, tried to hold some faith in the goodness of humanity. As the years went by, we drifted apart. When I heard that she was gone, I felt a shadow cross my heart. But she's nobody's hero.
Now, obviously, we were discussing this a little bit before we began recording, that about the actual murder that occurred in Port Dalhousie, Ontario, not far from St. Catharines. And I'm certainly not going to, I certainly wouldn't name names of any of the criminals involved, because they don't deserve to have space here. But just to think that, I mean, from my perspective, just to think of what my life was like, a 2-hour drive away from all that was happening, it's just sort of, wow, that was freaky. And I was that much closer when I bought this record, sitting there in a dorm room, and it's sort of, wow, that their trial was going on at that time. A really disturbing thought. But I'm not trying to make this about me.
Right.
Yeah. So, and Neil had said, again, in the one interview with Mark Allen, the music critic that I heard, that what he was trying to get across with this verse was the fact that, well, like I said, all their lives are shattered in nightmare brutality, but they try to carry on and bear the agony. The fact that they could actually still find some way to believe that, to find any kind of faith in people of any kind after suffering a loss like that at the hands of another person, that is the kind of thing that a role model, like, that's something to aspire to. The fact that these people could carry on in any fashion, that is the kind of thing that we should aspire to, as opposed to the kind of thing that we would and he tied it in with I'm going to paraphrase because I'll never get the exact quote out of the interview, but when he was talking to Mark Allen in this interview, he mentioned he found it ludicrous that the Western idea of a hero being the celebrity, they use the word celebrity often. He tied it in thematically to songs like Limelight and Superconductor, where we've got these this constant need for approval or the adoration or adulation of others, and like award show types where it's all about themselves and love me, please, as opposed to someone who is self-motivated, self-driven. And to that, it almost ties in with songs like Stick It Out and Cut to the Chase, which are about ambition and self-drive. So that's why, song order wise, on Counterparts, it works that way. By the way, they do tie in, building up to Nobody's Hero, but that's how the duality theme carries throughout the album and into this song. Before I get off on too many tangents, but that's why he's saying these are role models. That's the common thread in these examples that he's giving us, and saying this is what we should be. Now, he wasn't preachy like that, so he wasn't saying this is what we should aspire to. He's comparing and contrasting the examples and laying them out for us and saying, here is what I offer you. Take a look at these. Decide for yourself, but this is what I present to you, listeners.
What always seemed interesting to me, I mean, Paul and I were, as in the Paul who wasn't speaking a minute ago, we got a bunch of Pauls around here. We were in a conversation about the identities, a few months ago, and the characters here. And when the album came out, my initial thought was it certainly didn't matter. Neil's offering what he's offering, and in his fashion, it's applicable universally. But at this point, I kind of love knowing the name Ellis Booth and Kristen French, because at that point, I feel like, as Neil did the justice to them of keeping them alive, he immortalized them in a song like this. And this was one of the singles that had a video. So it just seems right to be able to name them. And I got their name from Martin Popoff's book, or French's name. So, I mean, as with Neil, there's a certain ability to live on in a different manner. So that just came to me. But once again, going back to the first verse, ending with sexuality, minority, masculinity, reality, this verse, family, brutality, agony, humanity. So we have to still acknowledge the way Neil is structuring his prose. He's working with a Y this time.
So moving on to the second chorus, which is different from the first one. So he's not following the Donna rule for once. But she's nobody's hero. Is the voice of reason against the howling mob. Hero is the pride of purpose in the unrewarding job. Hero, not the champion player who plays the perfect game. Hero, not the glamour boy who loves to sell his name. Everybody's buying, nobody's hero. So he follows the same formula as the first chorus. Not like you said, not using pronouns, just is, against. And then the second part, he goes into the negatives or the nots, right? But he changes it. I'll for some reason, I always remember the music video, that section where it says hero is the pride of purpose in the unrewarding job. If I'm not mistaken, it's like a school janitor.
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Yes.
It's the pride of purpose in your unrewarding job. You know what I mean? Like it's that one always struck to me for some reason.
And it opens with a teacher.
Right.
The
voiceover.
Speaking of the second chorus and all of this, this track for some reason has some kind of anti-bullying message to me, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So, sure. Like for example, the first verse, it never seemed like a threat to my masculinity, and the second verse is about someone, being killed just because. And the problem is that people like to bully other people just because of like color of the hair or like, different things that don't affect the bully's life at all. It's just like for fun. But if you look at it this way, jump into the chorus, he could like, cure a disease or like do some great stuff that no one would know about. Like, for example, imagine like if bully's mother was like sick and this guy who he just like beat to death, for example, he could invent something that could save that bully's mother. Like, that's just a kind of very simple example of this, but it really frustrates me because I understand it from the like, from my perspective. Like
that perspective, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. I will never kind of understand why the hell someone wants to bully someone or like make someone suffer, because he's, that person could be like a great someone, not a great actor. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the bully would not beat his own like favorite musician, favorite actor, because he's like a great like hero. Yeah, he's a great guy, but you don't know even her personally. You don't know. He just does stuff. So that's it. To me, this track has some kind of anti-bullying message. I understand that it maybe wasn't an intention, but the first verse, especially, like it never seemed like a threat to my masculinity. Introduced me to a wider reality. So you have the choice here, like to accept this wider reality, or to how do you say it? There is accept. You can accept it and you can fight it because it's something unknown to you.
Yeah,
and you're feeling like this is danger. But if you think about it just a little bit, it's not. Not even a little. So that's it.
This is the beauty of Neil's lyrics, is you can interpret them whichever way you want at the end of the day, right? You see what Alex will see in the lyric, I might see differently, or Paul will see differently. So that's the fantastic part of it. Yeah. Where were we? Oh, Paul, to your point, what's that?
Just to tie that in, I think you make a very good point, because a role model is someone who gives to others, whereas the hero that he's describing make it all about them. Yeah. So I think that fits really well. That's all I want to throw in. Okay.
Like you said, and you were talking earlier about, comparing, like, people who were seeing heroes as sports heroes or celebrities. And I mean, he's talking not the champion player who plays the perfect game. Could be chess, could be bowling, could be whatever, but that's how you see it. Not the glamour boy who loves to sell his name.
Yeah, like celebrities, at the end of the day, they just kind of inspire you, maybe, to become a better person, or they do some charity stuff. But like, you see it. But the stuff that you don't see, you can accidentally beat this guy. So that frustrates me. I'm very bad at explaining my thoughts, but I hope you understand me.
It's coming across.
Nope, it's all good. So at this point in the song, we hit the bridge and Alex's solo.
Well, there was that other interlude really could be called the first solo. I mean, it's only 4 measures, but he did play, like, he came in with a droning kind of solo, which was also very common in the 90s. So he was remaining topical, and the drone kind of helps bridge that open area of the strum to some high notes. So it's, we're talking basically a couple of solos that sort of have, and I don't use the word pejoratively, pop appeal, because it's sort of, well, is he going to throw in some monstrous solo like we just had in Cut to the Chase? No, just going to do the right notes played in the right manner with the right technique. He doesn't have to show off. He just has to break up some of the lyrics.
So he basically plays a solo that fits the song.
Yeah,
as always.
As always. And literally every song that had a solo.
Correct.
Every Rush song that had a solo that fit the song. We all know this.
So at this point, once the solo's done, Geddy goes into the last part, which is, as the years went by, we drifted apart. When I heard that you were gone, I felt a shadow cross my heart, but he's nobody's hero. So now he kind of gets himself involved, I think. Maybe not.
When I heard that you were gone,
right?
I open to interpretation.
Correct.
I have my own opinion on this, and it's just an opinion. I think that is putting it out there, like, and now what will you do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. You're putting it out to the
once again being universal, including the audience, the listener on the storytelling.
I could be wrong.
And so then after that, they go into the original first chorus. Hero saves a drowning child. So he repeats the first chorus. Then they just kind of trail off into Getty sings "Nobody's Hero."
Epic crescendo, full orchestra.
Yeah, just a
Came
beautiful overall just a beautiful overall full sounding finish to the song. It's just I'm hearing it in my head, and it's kind of just gives me little chills a little bit, right? Just it does. I mean, it's trying to read lyrics without singing it. It's hard. I don't know how you do it, Alex. But
I know.
Remember, you bet your life.
But I mean, this is song number 4 in the album, and like you said, they don't just put songs willy-nilly in the album. There's a method to their madness, right? Like you said, you start out with "Stick It Out" and to "Cut to the Chase," and now "Nobody's Hero." Any other thoughts on this song before we wrap it up? I mean, musically, relax. All right,
let's go
first. Paul, if you want to go first, go ahead.
The video.
Yes.
Video was, I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it was the first video they did with, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Dale Heslip. Because "Stick It Out" was directed by somebody else. Dale Heslip did this video. He had also directed the Superman song and from Crash Test Dummies. But he would go on to direct Driven, all the videos pieces from Time Machine, all the video interludes from Clockwork Angels, the Time Stand Still documentary, the everything piece from that, and then Shows Over from R40. So that began a very long and beautiful relationship of videography with the band. I'm pretty sure this was the first video he did with them, and amazing music video. No offense to the videos of the past, but you gotta admit, it's been said before, some of the music videos they did, sometimes a little bit cheesy. This one I love. I think that it really did nail the song. It is a good mix of artful, but it still had the performance behind it. It did the symbolism. Yes, it's a little bit 90s, a little bit on the artsy side, but I really like it. The whole idea of
are you bashing Time Stand Still video? Is that what you're bashing? Like the floating around, or the cheesy, or is it
for the time?
Yeah,
or Distant Early Warning, or that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, obviously compared to today's
Dr. Strangelove. Hey, homage to Dr. Strangelove. What's not to love?
Right.
But I mean, a lot of videos in the 90s, really, people were looking to kind of take them in a different direction than the 80s videos had previously given us.
I really love this video.
Yeah.
Igor, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something before.
I like how the track, no one is showing off because the track is kind of melancholic and the message is melancholic. Getty doesn't have all this, and Neil's beat in the chorus is just like one of the simplest thing he ever maybe played. It's just dun 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 dun. That's it, and it doesn't have any right cymbals, this signature thing. It doesn't have anything kind of cool. It's just very simple, very grounded, musically speaking overall. And I think it really, I don't know, makes the song more, how do you say it? It speaks to your soul. It doesn't let you kind of analyze the parts or anything. It's just a great track. That's it. It's not overdone. It's not overproduced.
Dare I say top 40-ish kind of song? Radio? No?
Yeah, there's
Maybe.
No reason not to say
No.
that.
I think that the chorus melody is weird. It starts cool, like "Nobody's Hero," but then it's like one note. It's not radio friendly. You can't kind of, I don't know. The melody in the chorus seems weird. It took me a long time to get used to it.
They must have thought it was radio friendly because they released it as a single.
It was a single, right?
So it got sent to all the radio stations around North America as, hey, here's Rush's next song. So
the structure is kind of simple, but it's 5 minutes, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, you could see radio stations at that time frame sort of changing their format a little bit to adjust to modern rock. And there were,
Yes.
I mean, a local AOR station here that was known to play Boston every hour, basically would be, you know, Boston Zeppelin. You could count on
AC/DC.
that. Oh yeah, they were playing Spoon Man. They were playing Smashing Pumpkins in prime time. So at that time, going, you know, early into the mid '90s, you could definitely see stations saying, "All right, we got kind of a new sound for rock. What's happening here? What do we do with this? Let's play some people." And
Right.
you know, I would assume that at that point, well, okay, Rush has a new single. Let's, you know, this is kind of a strumming thing. Let's throw it on. You know, it's
Yeah.
you know, this wasn't maybe as much of a an upheaval in the '60s, but you could tell that there was people were sort of acknowledging there's a new sound that pushed the hairspray and spandex aside. What do we want to do with this? How do we want to get on that money wagon?
If they could play November Rain and they could play Nothing Else Matters, they could fit nobody's.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So live, I'm assuming I should have done my research. They played this in the obviously the Counterparts tour.
And Test for Echo.
Which
124 times total. Yeah.
They play what? I'm sorry, what?
124 times total. First time was in Pensacola.
Obviously,
last time was in Ottawa.
Oh, okay.
So
Did you has anyone seen it live here?
Well, on the Counterparts tour and
Counterparts
you guys
and
saw it, yeah.
and Test for Echo tour. And so yeah, it was on the Different Stages album.
Yes.
Tinley Park, Illinois.
Oh, you were there, right? Of course. Yeah. Sorry, my first concert was in 2010. Yeah, but
I didn't make that.
so.
So you got that on me. We're good.
Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? We're all good.
I'm good.
Well, if you're still with us, thank you so much for listening, for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. Next week will be 195, and oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank as to what's the next song on the album. Anyone?
Between Sun and Moon.
Pardon? Oh, Between Sun and Moon. Oh, thank you. Someone saved me there. But please click like, subscribe, put your comments down there. Let us know what you think about the song. You like it? You don't like it? Whatnot? And also, if you want to participate in these roundtables, by all means, send us an email, and we'll see what we can do to get you on. So until next time, everybody, thanks a lot. Have a good night.